Welcome to Centerpoint's Dive In with Matt and Joe.
In this podcast, we're filling in gaps and diving deeper into topics and passages related to the Sunday messages at Centerpoint Church.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Joe. Let's dive in.
Well, welcome everybody. Glad you're listening in. We are looking back on the message that we did just this last weekend from Exodus, where we see that the wilderness is real and the trials of the wilderness are real. And yet God gives this incredible gift to us in how he's preparing us. Right there in the middle of the wilderness, he is preparing us for precisely the place that he's calling us. And so this is good gift that God gives us. We looked at Moses' life and how he spent 40 years in the wilderness in Midian. And in that time, God was preparing him to be the one that would lead the people out of slavery in Egypt. And so though the wilderness is difficult, it's hard, it's pushing against everything that we want to trust with an invitation to trust him, it is also the space that God shapes us, forms us, and prepares us for the journey forward. And so today we get to hear more from Matt Partington, and I've just loved walking this journey with Matt and seeing how God has been preparing him for years, is continuing to prepare him, but how God has worked in some of these wilderness spaces in his life. So Matt, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, Matt. I appreciate the opportunity to come.
This is going to be fun. So give us just a little bit of a sense of who you are. Give us the details. Who are you? Tell us your family.
Yeah, so married to my great wife, Jenna, two adult sons who proud of the service that they're continuing on. A little bit about me is, I grew up in a household where mom wanted to make sure that I knew Jesus. And so I was born on a Tuesday and in church on a Sunday.
Were you really?
Yeah. So, so it was important to my mom to give me that Christian foundation to know who Jesus was. And so I was found myself very involved in a youth group at our church and had a great mentor and a youth pastor who really kind of showed me what it meant to follow Jesus as an adult man. And then following high school, went into the Marine Corps, served 4 years there, and found myself kind of wandering a little bit, not maybe living up to where I should have been at the time. But God intervened. And so he's done that several times over the course of my life, where it's been extremely obvious and notable events that he's broken in to say, I'm here. And so I came out of the Marine Corps, and it was a challenge to get going into my career, but was hired in law enforcement. I spent 28 years in law enforcement here in New Hampshire, with a lot of ups and downs in that, a lot of good challenges, a lot of fun. But also a lot of significant, we define them as critical incidents that I had to experience. And so that has kind of shaped where I'm at today. And again, over the course of 28 years, found that the stresses of the job snuck up on me. But just to jump back, at one of those points where God kind of broke in, go all the way back to 2010, where sitting in church, had the Bible open. Sometimes we drift off when the message is being preached and we find our own passages. But it was interesting on this particular day. I was in 2 Timothy 4, and the words on the page kind of jumped out, where it says, "Preach the word." Almost like when you're watching a movie and they shadow around a letter that somebody's reading, they want you to be sure what words we're looking at. It's kind of what it looked like.
So just dialed in on those specific words.
Really dialed in on preach the word. And it just kind of settled in on me. It's like, God, are you calling me to ministry? And if so, what does that even mean?
Yeah.
Right. And I shared that with Jenna after a while of processing it myself. But also I took the opportunity to connect with my pastor at that time, to start maybe a mentoring process to kind of decipher what do you want me to do? Are you calling me to be a pastor? All the sorts of different ministry that you can be involved in. Well, at the same time, still raising two boys and had a pretty demanding job. I had a specialty field that required me to be on call all the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, unless I was out of state somewhere on vacation. And so that was pretty demanding, but at the same time, wanted to pursue what does this mean? It took me all the way until a few years before retirement to navigate through what God was calling me into for ministry. And that often felt like, as you've described, this wilderness experience, the ups and the downs of just living life here on this earth, with all of its challenges, all of its ups, all of its downs, all of its struggles, both personal and professional, that I've encountered over the years that have just been significantly made a significant impact in my life. But it afforded the opportunity again to as I went along the way to really zero in on where I'm going to minister, what type of ministry it's going to be. And so one of the things that from a childhood experience made a real impact on me. My mother took me to see Billy Graham twice. He was up here in Manchester, and then he was down in Boston just a day or two after that. I was I think about 9 years old, and just made a significant impact. The way he spoke, things he said, watching the people flood out of the stadiums to come down and accept Jesus. As a 9-year-old boy, it was just stunning.
Yeah, that would have been.
And so I've always tracked what the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association is doing here in the United States and around the world. And I started to learn they have a chaplain program that does disaster response. And so being a first responder, being somebody, at the time I was studying Homeland Security and emergency management sort of things and formal education. And it started to settle in that, yeah, that's a real possibility. And so I started processing that some more. And then come to find out they added a specialization credential for that chaplaincy specific to law enforcement.
Really?
And
how uncanny.
It really was, to all of a sudden realize that, yeah, not only can I give my time to people in crisis, but to fellow law enforcement officers.
So this was so you said that 2010 was when you had the words on a page,
yeah,
kind of sense of calling embedded into your spirit, kind of exploring that and trying to figure out what that even meant. But it's something that just kind of settled in you and you kind of knew was there, but you weren't always sure what to do with it until you're probably talking in the early 20s now, right?
It was probably 2016, 17 when I first explored this disaster response.
Yeah,
but then again, it took even a few more years after that. Interesting. The pastor that I had started mentoring with, not too long after we started that, he retired.
Okay.
And so, where do I go now? Right? Where do I go for guidance and mentoring? At the same time, we ended up changing churches, coming here to Centerpoint back in 2011. And so that's a whole fresh start. That's getting to know people, getting to know the pastor, and figuring out the whole process of, can I even start mentoring again? Do I,
right.
Do you have to build a relationship for that? And so, and then that pastor left.
Yep.
And so it's just one of those things where I'm like, did I miss the boat on this one? Did I, is this really something I'm supposed to be doing? And it was just, God kept saying, yes, but not yet.
Okay.
This is a time of preparation, right? And so it was interesting as I navigated through that. Again, career-wise, things were really taking off into some other specialized fields, things that I just wanted to do, quite frankly. They were exciting, they were fun, they were mission-driven. and at the same time exposed me again to some of the worst critical incidents I've experienced in my career. And so at that point, it was really trying to figure out when is it going to be time to let the career go, and what does that look like for pursuing ministry. So back in 2019 is when I started really taking the steps. I started some of the lighter training work for the Billy Graham Rapid Response Team, and also really zoned in on what are the requirements, what do I need to do for that, and so then it took just a few more years after that to get to the point where I'm in July of 2024 got accepted as a chaplain for the Rapid Response Team. Did 3 deployments all last fall. They felt like they were back to back to back. There were only a few weeks in between each of them. But again, in all that time, there was still a lot of other stirrings and other possibilities of, hey, this isn't just going to be something you're going to do every once in a while. It's like, I've got more for you.
Yeah, so it was a sense of this isn't just an episodic incursion into your life. This was going to be more folded into your life.
Yeah.
Now, when did you retire?
So officially, October 1st of 2023.
Okay. So heading into that, it must have stirred a lot of questions in you, because you got this thing that's been niggling and stirring for a long time. You're now seeing the end coming from your career that you've loved but experienced a lot of hard in. What was it like for you as you began to round that corner and retirement was becoming real for you?
Yeah, so I should also add, beginning of 2023, or really the last week of 2022, we experienced Jenna's illness. And so I had originally thought that maybe early 2023 might be the time to call it. And again, God said, not yet. And so we spent 9 full months of navigating through treatments and surgeries and things like that to get to the finish line of the career, but also recovering from that whole time.
Yeah, because that in itself was really hard.
Yeah,
I mean, it feels really trite to say that. I don't mean to trivialize in that, but did it almost make the career fade into the shadows for a little bit because you get so focused on walking with your wife through this?
Yeah, it absolutely did. For the longest time, 28 years in law enforcement, 20 of that was on the special team that was very demanding of time, and I was traveling out of state. I was, again, getting called out all the time, and so oftentimes my wife and sons were a tremendous gift to me in being willing to sacrifice along with me being gone and things getting interrupted, literally getting up from the dinner table and rushing out the door and things like that. So now to all of a sudden really put that in the backdrop, the career in the backdrop, to make sure that I was where I needed to be to support her going through treatments and surgeries and post-surgeries. And that was a long 9 months for both of us. And so in some ways, I feel like, I've a long time ago, I ran a marathon. So I actually know, the feeling of seeing a finish line in the distance, and you often get that little boost at the end to really step it up and run across the finish line. And I felt in some ways, this metaphor, the career, it was almost like, yeah, just get me there. Just get me to the finish line. There's no sprinting to it at this point. But I also was excited for the what's next. You and I had started meeting a couple of years before retirement, and just kind of getting the opportunity to get to know you better, to share with you this calling, to try and navigate and figure out what does it all mean. And so, when it was really time, it was a big help to have somebody that I could turn to walk through this with, and have that preparation to get me to another starting line. Right.
That's right. Because it's not a retirement to nothing.
Right. It's
a whole new door opening.
Exactly.
But yet that door is unclear, because it's sort of an off the beaten path type of response to that calling that you've had.
It really is. And it's, again, it took so long. I read a book several years ago. It was basically a biography of King David from boy all the way through. And it really went into those years of preparation, those years of being chased down by King Saul, and all that went into him finally becoming king. And so having that in my mind, having read that, and then all of a sudden now it's like all these years, you think of, again, Moses even spending all those years before he got called back to Egypt, and even Paul, he has his encounter with Jesus, but then still has to wait a few years of preparation to really get things going. And so that's where, in some ways, I said, okay, God, whatever we need to do, you're telling me to go. I'm saying yes, but now I need some clarity, and with it taking as long as it did, and quite frankly, there were times where I put other things first, the career and other things, and so that spreads that timing out where you're following your own thing. And then you're like, oh, that's right, I'm supposed to be preparing for something.
So little reminders along the way.
Gives you that little tap on the shoulder. Remember what we talked about? Okay, yeah, here we are.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's, again, it's from 2010 to 2023 is a long time, relatively speaking, I suppose. But it was an opportunity to really try and navigate through, and what he's doing today is what's so exciting for me, is that he's actually giving me the opportunity to see the whys of some of the things I went through.
Yeah,
right?
And I want to get there in a second, but I want to park us back in those moments where you're letting go of the one and not yet holding on to the other. I'm thinking about like a trapeze artist when they've let go of their own trapeze, but they've not yet been grabbed by their partner on the other end. And there's this, like, am I going to get caught? Is there something there? Did I just let go of this? How dumb is that? Letting go of what I knew. Here's this thing that I don't even know what it's supposed to look like yet, but I know I'm supposed to, all of those things. So I want to kind of go back to that a little bit. Is there a moment that stands out to you in that space as you think back on that?
So there's definitely the hesitation. There was a strong desire to follow and walk into this, but there was also a hesitation. Your image is perfect for me. You probably don't even know this, but heights is a thing.
Oh, really? I thought you were going to tell me that, in your Marine days, you were actually a trapeze artist.
I will tell you, I dangled from the bottom of helicopters at 400 feet in the air. I rappelled off the sides of buildings, the sides of ships, fast roped out of helicopters. I did all kinds of things from heights.
Yeah. But heights is a thing.
But heights is a thing. I forced myself to do it. But what I discovered is it's not really the heights. It's the step out. Once I'm harnessed into something, or once I've got the gear ready to go, or I don't, so like they call it spy rigging. They hang a rope underneath the helicopter. You clip your harness into it. It lifts you up. You don't have to do a thing. That was great. That was fun. But if I were to have done something like at a height to like jump, that would have been a problem. We would have waited a while, right? To say, is this really what I want to do? It's a great picture because the trapeze artist swinging on the bar would be fun.
Yeah.
Letting go of it and seeing if somebody else is going to catch you, that's a problem. Right?
That's well said, yeah.
And so that's, when you are comfortable in something for 28 years, you're even considered an expert in certain fields, you get really hesitant to walk away from it.
What did that do to your sense of identity?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, especially very early on, there was just a real sense of, I didn't walk into another formal type job. I still haven't. Sometimes I feel like I'm busy, as busy as I was when I did work, but there was no formal job. And so there was a sense of, did I do the right thing? Is this really what's happening? Because even within the early retirement years, there was still training to be had. And so I found myself, taking care of the house and, just doing the day-to-day type things and researching the training, taking on new classes and doing all that. But there's a hesitation. There's a looking back to say, what did I do? Right.
Yeah. There's what did I do?
Yeah.
Because there's some financial implications.
Yeah.
And while, retirement is different than what you'd been used to, there's identity. Who am I? And we all wrestle with an identity that's tied to what we do. There was a time where you were just even asking, whenever I would sit at a table and we'd start telling stories about our work, I had the cool stories.
Yeah.
I don't have the cool stories right now. And I don't know what's up with that.
People ask, how's things going? Oh, good. I'm doing this or that and, whatever. And it's all good. And then they start talking to somebody else.
Yeah.
And so they're sometimes it feels like there's a lack of significance there, that people did. They want to know, they saw something in the news. Oh, were you at that? Yeah, I was. And even if I didn't share any of the details, it's still one of those things that they kind of understood, whether it was an investigation of some sort that I couldn't share information, they understood. But it felt good when people would ask and appreciate what was going on. And there's not as much as that anymore.
And so now, like, hey, I'm taking this class.
I'm going to have coffee with somebody.
Yeah, a career, that maybe you weren't jumping out of helicopters, but it carried kind of that sense of intensity. I'm taking a class to be a chaplain.
Yeah,
that's different.
It really was,
and you had to navigate that. That can be hard.
It's definitely. It's something that I've really grown. There's a piece about being where God wants you, right? And when you're walking in His path that He's set forth, there is a peace with that. And at this point, I'm 2 years removed now,
right?
To the point where it's not really, it's not about what I'm doing anymore. It's just about, God, what do you want next? And there's also, very shortly after I retired, I also experienced my own physical symptoms pretty quickly, not knowing just how stressed I was from 28 years. Right. That accumulates over time. All of the stress management training that I've been doing in part of my chaplaincy preparation and all that has taught me where I'm at, right? And there's the book, The Body Keeps the Score. My body kept score. And I ended up in the emergency room. And so part of that was just trying to figure out how do I heal while I'm also going into a field of helping people navigate stress. So there was, again, God using the opportunity to help others through it has brought healing for me as well.
Yeah.
And so it's I've heard you say so often, God works both in us and through us. And that's what he's doing with this mission. He's providing healing. He's providing meaning for what I've done. And he's also working through to reach others, and it's one of those things where you just, you're always amazed by God because he's God. But then you all of a sudden just see time and time again where things just have no other explanation than how amazing he is. And you just say, wow.
Yeah, and you get a front row seat to see that when we walk forward in trust, he invites us to come along with him into these spaces where he does what only he can do.
Yeah.
So I want to fast forward a little bit. You're navigating kind of the wilderness of recalibration, certainly from retirement into this what is next. And it wasn't going into a job per se, but it was this pursuit of calling. And so there was training that you went through. There were experiences that you had that reaffirmed this sense of calling. And so through your work, you become an ordained chaplain, right?
Yes. So I'm licensed and ordained through the International Fellowship of Chaplains. And that was just, again, a part of the process of God using one part of the plan to lead to another part, to build this whole adventure that he's got me doing right now, of ministering to not only the people in disasters, but I want you to do it locally as well. And I want you to do it more often, right? We're not just doing once a year or a couple times a year on these disaster sites, although those trips were a great, full-on immersion into helping people.
That's right.
Which was part of the training as well as part of the mission. It was like a combo there.
That's right.
And now all of a sudden it's, hey, there's an opportunity for you to be this licensed chaplain, go to this training. It's going to build on everything else you've already trained for. And now where can that be used? And so just like with the rapid response team having a law enforcement ministry, started really just being drawn back to working with first responders, doing peer support. Back in summer of 2023, in getting ready to retire, I also thought, well, maybe I can do a little bit of work on the side while I'm doing the chaplain thing. And so there's a class out in New Mexico that I taught back here, but had to go and sit in on it out there to get certified to teach it. And so they had upgraded their curriculum, had to go back out there. And I'm like, absolutely, I'll come out here, I'll get certified, and then I'll teach every, just a couple times a year, make a little money on the side. And I flew out there, and the class was fine, met a lot of interesting people and all that, as I've done in the past. And all of a sudden, we were out to dinner, and just everybody's hanging out. And there was another police officer that had traveled out to this class. He had served in the Army as well. And something had just settled in on him, and he was struggling. And everybody else was just having a good time, hanging out, telling stories and everything else. And I just saw him kind of off to the side and had an opportunity to sit down next to him, come alongside him and speak peace and significance to him and let him know that he was loved. And that was before I had any of this training. And it was just, and fast forward to now, right? That kind of settled in on me that, okay, helping first responders is important through these crises. But then my resume should have me teaching out there pretty regularly. I've talked to a few people, and that's never come to fruition. And I said, God, did you really have me fly from New Hampshire to New Mexico to meet a guy from Missouri to help him navigate through some dark times. And that's exactly what it was.
That's awesome.
You know, and I have used that as an example of on my disaster deployments. God, did you really take a guy from New Hampshire to drive to Texas to talk to a guy in his driveway about a tree falling on his house? And next thing you know, he's accepting Jesus. And apparently that's what his plan was. Right. And it's just all these things time and time again. And so that's where the first responder thing has really taken off, was that one encounter in the desert of New Mexico.
Unexpected. Like, that's not why you thought you went there.
Not at all why I went there.
But you can see God's hand in that.
Yeah.
Now, and how much God loves that guy.
Absolutely.
That he would deploy one of his guys from New Hampshire to go talk with him. I love that.
It was fantastic, and it made such an impression that it just really, again, led me to this mission back here of doing local work, working with our first responders, our police, fire, EMS dispatchers, that whole core group right there, all throughout southern New Hampshire. And so in trying to pursue, so now I've got the training for it, taken a lot of classes, gotten some licensing, gotten all certifications in how to work with them and do crisis intervention and things like that. But now, how do I get involved with them, right? So I made some calls to some people that I knew, and they're like, I think we're all set. And then, there was one guy that I knew. We spent 20 years on another special team together, and I knew that he had retired and he was working with first responders. So I'm like, I got to call him. And I dragged my feet, and I got to call him. And sure enough, I get a text message, we can just say out of the blue, but, we know that God was working in this as well. He was having lunch with my son, who's a first responder, and says, hey, I'm having lunch with your kid. He's telling me you're doing this chaplain thing. We got to meet and talk about this so you can start doing it around here. I'm like, all right, I guess I was dragging my feet a little too long, and God said, here we go. And so that's what I've been doing. I'm working with first responders, doing critical incident stress debriefs.
So you're part of a team in doing that.
Yeah.
So they'll cover different aspects of life, and one of those is spiritual life.
Absolutely.
And so they've asked you to kind of anchor that, but you're part of this broader teams that will help first responders debrief horrible things.
Yes.
And so that's been such a powerful part of how God is using you, but it's also put you in relationship with these people. And I'm thinking about, that was the retreat you were on recently.
Yeah. Right.
Was with that group of people.
Yeah. So they've made me their team chaplain. And I think that's pretty cool. And that's when we talk about stress, it impacts the body physically, emotionally, spiritually, and that's they have for a long time felt that the spiritual side is something that has been missing.
Yeah.
And so they asked me to speak to that. And over the course of this year, it has really formed into an opportunity to let people know that they're loved and that they matter.
Yeah.
And that's the approach that I take. When you let them know they're loved and they matter, that brings peace, right? Those three core desires that we talk about, the peace, belonging, and significance. And so recently there was a retreat being held, and it was actually an opportunity. It's a combination of some training as well as an opportunity to relax, right?
Just trying to help you who serve others to take a deep breath.
Fun outdoor activities, things like that. And really just, a couple days away to kind of decompress. And so I'm on my way to the retreat site. I'm driving up there, and I'm looking forward to it because I know several of the people and gotten to know them much better in this last year. But at the same time, as I'm driving, hey God, if there's a way I can make an impact, just let me know. Just let's some of the best worship time and best prayer time for me is just driving. It helps me not yell at all the people who are cutting me off and things like that. I kid. But so on my way up there, that was my prayer. It's just, if I can make an impact, I'll be ready. And so the first morning, it was up on a lake, and it was the sun hadn't quite come up yet, but you could see the glow starting to come up and over the mountains. And there were a couple people out there that on the dock that I knew, and I was asked to pray.
So they asked you to pray.
It just out of the blue, hey, would you start our day with prayer? And I'm sure, absolutely. And so I, thank God for His creation and for the opportunity to just breathe the fresh air, and just a prayer of thanksgiving and just guide us through this day kind of thing. Not anything rehearsed or scripted or anything. Just thanks God,
being present to the moment.
And come to find out, apparently that made an impact. Where it was shared later on in the day, and all of a sudden people, there was a prayer time on the docks. But can we do that tomorrow? I would be happy to. I have no idea that this was going to happen, but I'm just okay.
I just want to reiterate again for those who are listening. This isn't a Christian retreat.
Right.
This is for those who are caring for first responders, kind of a peer support thing, but it is not a Christian retreat. Right. So you hear this guy's asking you to pray, and now word spread.
And so I end up, the next morning, I was up at 4:30 in the morning. I'm a late sleeper, so being up at 4:30 is not common for me. But it's happened a couple of times where, God just wakes me up to say, let's have some prayer time and just prepare, and kind of just put it on my heart to be ready to pray. And so I got out there before anybody else, and I was standing out there. I was taking in the glow of the very slight sliver of light coming up and over the mountains, and this, just knowing that this opportunity was being presented. There's a song that we sing here called "I'm Overwhelmed." It's one of my favorites, and I've heard you refer to songs as the funeral song, the one you want there. That this is one of them. The "I'm Overwhelmed," because you just get, when God gets so intentional and so personal, you can't help but be overwhelmed. And so there I am. The words to the song are going through my head. And finally, I looked up the words because I just wanted to read them. And it just stuck with me for a little while. And I'll get to the rest of that in a bit. But ultimately, I turn around and here come 10 people.
I love that.
Okay, I guess we're doing this. Right? So again, I just praying in the moment, like you just described. Thanks for this day. Thanks for the opportunity to be here with each other, and nothing formal, nothing crazy, but just speaking to God the way that He likes us to do in a relationship with Him. And then the third day, we get back out there, and I got all 17.
Now the whole crew is there with you.
The whole crew is out there for prayer.
They're looking
time.
for something.
And just the feedback that I got, was tremendous. Just people letting me know that they experience God in a way. So it was good to have that feedback, but also to just take in that moment that, all right, I guess God's doing some work. And there were so many other things that happened in that retreat, that there were discussions that were had in groups where specifically looking for me to answer a question that had come up. And I said, I got to give you some context for what I'm about to say. And ultimately it's, I come from a Christian Protestant background, and God created us to have relationship with Him, and ultimately we ruined that pretty badly, and I'm just kind of trying to speak plainly about creation, the fall, redemption, and all of it, and ultimately I had the opportunity to say it. We had to figure out a way to correct that, and God sent Jesus, and we just have to believe in Him. Growing up, going to Sunday school, I always see that image of, you get the 99 sheep out in the pasture, and there's always that one that's over the cliff, and Jesus is reaching down and grabbing the, He rescues the one, leaves the 99. But to me, He's chasing after us. And I've said that to a few people in the last couple of weeks, and it's just made such an impact that, you think of a king in our day, pick any country that has a monarchy, right? The king isn't chasing after us. But God loves us so much that he chases after us. That's how much he wants to have relationship with us. And it's settled in. And this experience has drawn out over the last couple of weeks, where I've had some one-on-one encounters with people from the same place and been able to talk to them about Jesus, and had one person surrender his life to him.
Beautiful.
Over a cup of coffee, So you don't have to be in a church to accept Jesus. We can do it right here at the coffee shop.
That's right.
And I think I'd like to do that. And so sure enough, led somebody to Jesus right there. And so it's just been one of those things that, again, time and time again, that God just keeps opening opportunities. Going back to the song, I'm Overwhelmed. I showed up, the retreat ended on Friday, and I was just, I'm living on a high, right? I'm like, this has been phenomenal. Like, I came here to relax, and God just keeps using me, right? Working in me and through me to connect with people. And of course, what's one of the songs that we sang that Sunday morning?
Oh, there
right?
it is.
And I knew it from the first note, right? And we start singing, I'm overwhelmed. And I can't help, of course, but be overwhelmed knowing that God has done this for me now, right? Hey, this one's for you, right? And the image that I had while we were singing it is, Jenna over the years has planned some pretty fun celebrations for me, whether it was a retirement or whatever. And she likes to go over the top with something that's completely unexpected. And when that happens, I usually glance over and you can see a smile on her face, like, yeah, I nailed that one, right? And the image for me on that Sunday morning was, there's Jesus standing over in the corner of the sanctuary with a big grin on his face. Yep, that's for you. And I'm just looking at him going, yep, you nailed it, as only he can, And so it's just one of those things that he continually presents opportunities, but also lets me know just how much he loves me.
Yeah. Yeah. His love is active in that whole thing. He loves these people that he's reaching through you, but he's reaching through you because he loves you so much. He just wants to be with you, and you get to be with him on his mission field, wherever that is.
That's right. We were having a discussion, you and I, over lunch at some point, and we had the whole discussion about God's taking his kid to work.
Yeah.
Right. And I love that phrase now. It's my dad was a police officer, and I used to get to show up to work, and he'd let me turn on the lights and sirens and all that. And it, take your kid to work kind of day.
Yep.
It was fun. But there were a couple of occasions where even off duty, he would decide. Now, this was back in the old days, right? This wasn't any time recent. This was over 40 years ago. But like, he had blue lights underneath the grill of our Gremlin.
Okay.
Right. And I remember we were going to the store, and somebody cut him off, and so he wanted to stop him, and they took off. And all I remember is my dad saying, "Buckle up." Right. And for our younger audience, back in that day, we didn't have to wear seatbelts, right?
Yeah.
So don't be horrified. It wasn't a law back then. I used to climb all over the cars while they were moving, but I knew if my dad said buckle up, we were going for a ride.
Yep.
A couple of years later, he said the same thing, only this time it was in the station wagon, and it was going in reverse faster than I've ever been in reverse. And he J-turned that thing around and chased somebody else down. It was hilarious, right? Now that I'm looking back on it, okay. Yeah. But the reason I tell those stories, one is I just think they're funny, but two is I feel like sometimes God's just saying, buckle up. This is going to be a ride. And I've done it. I've been on this ride before now. And so I know when he says buckle up, it's going to be an adventure and it's going to be a ride. But here we go.
That is phenomenal. Thank you for sharing that with us, Matt. I think about the little pieces of the journey that I've gotten to be a part of with you, and what you've articulated for us today is there are these spaces that have seemed almost barren, the wilderness pieces along the journey, but all the ways that God has been preparing you. He's been preparing you to hear his voice, to be attentive to when he does say, buckle up, we're going to try something. Watch this. He's been shaping in you a trust to say yes, even when it means letting go, and even before you know what you're going to be grabbing onto. So he's shaped that trust in you. He's shaped opportunity in you so you begin to recognize opportunities when they're in front of you. Because sometimes those opportunities are different than the ones that we thought they would be. And part of what he's formed in you is eyes to see when you're going off script, because there's something he wants to do off to the side here, and you get to join him in that. And building that faithfulness in you, the faith to see and to hear, those are all things that are formed in the wilderness journey aspect of things. Nothing is wasted through all that. So you even ask the questions around, did I miss my window? Did I miss my opportunity? Maybe I was supposed to do this way back then. Nothing is wasted. God is shaping it. Sometimes we do make the journey in the wilderness longer than maybe it needed to be. Certainly the Israelites did that.
Right.
But even in that, nothing is wasted. God is shaping and forming, and he's given us good gifts. And one of those good gifts is preparation. He shapes us and forms us. And that is true for all of us, whether we're on the precipice of career change or relationship changes, those big things, or just the daily rhythms of our lives. He's shaping us so that we can increasingly trust him, say yes to him, even in those moments where he goes off script, and begin to see his kingdom breaking in some of the most beautiful and unexpected ways. We get to join him in what he's doing. He loves us so much. He loves the people around us so much. And this is one of the ways that his love is unleashed into the world. So thank you for sharing this with us today, Matt. Those of you who are listening along, thank you for joining us in this. The journey in the wilderness continues.